Starting to the top right, we currently see our proto starting player for Team StarTale. It is
StarTale, Panic.
Panic, definitely a really good choice as a starting player here. A player that had a couple of really nice victories this season, especially against Axiom Acer. Now we have him up against the Zerg player, starting to the bottom left of the map. This is, of course, the Zerg starting things off for Team AZUBU.
AZUBU Ragnarok.
Ragnarok, such a great player for TSL. Potential never fully realized. He bounced between LGIM and now ends up here in AZUBU, his final resting team for now. And he's up against a Forge-oriented opening coming out from Panic. Looks like it's going to be a Nexus first, as he's not started the Forge yet. And on Fruitland, this is a pretty good build.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. I mean, the thing is, with a Forge opening, you're always just really safe. You want to play it a bit more defensive and not go for the early aggression against the Zerg player. It's something that you can do. It gives you a good boost in economy, and you will definitely have the resources that you need. And you know, again, on a map like this, I actually like it. I mean, both openings are valid. It's more a matter of style and preference.
Really true. The ramp, leads down to a relatively easy to wall off choke point. And with that, it's pretty easy to get the wall up, not worry about any pressure. And it looks like we are going to have double hatch before pool coming out from Ragnarok. So a very economy-based build, and against the build he's facing, this is exactly what he wants.
Yeah, at the same time though, it could be a bit risky. He needs one of the overlords over there, and he has already the first overlord in a very nice position. The second overlord in a pretty decent position that can spot the probe. The first one realized now also that he's up against the Forge opening, so I wouldn't be surprised if he sends out a drone to just check that third base to be safe. But he feels pretty confident that he knows exactly how many probes there are currently in the game or on the map, and Panic will definitely not scout what's going on. He doesn't send anything out, and Ragnarok gets away with his build.
Yeah, gets away with it.
There comes the drone though. He's sending it out after all, just having a quick look there as well. Third so far. No, actually just the eco slide, sorry. I missed the headshot there for a second.
Yeah, had he sent it to the third base, it would have just been to check, but he has an overlord also, seeing that no secondary probe went out, and I think he is kind of thinking, alright, I don't think there's a probe out there, because I didn't see one. Could be the case that one hit and got by, but not a massive risk here by Ragnarok, but had that third baseman cannon, that would have been a big problem.
Pretty good opening here for Ragnarok, and Ragnarok with 15 maps played in this matchup in Heart of the Swarm is 9-6, so he has a 60% win ratio, with recent wins against Huangshin, Swagger and a Sickness, whereas Panic has a 53% win ratio with 13 maps played against Zerg offline in Heart of the Swarm. And the build that he chose, of course, a pretty solid one if you want to have the good economy early on, but at the same time it delays your attack a little bit. And this is just one of those styles that has really been mapped out in timings, especially by Zerg players, of course. They know exactly what to do and when to do it. And if you go for a double hatch before pool and you don't get scouted at all, you feel great. You feel on top of the world.
Yeah. It looks like Panic is just playing a style where he thinks no matter what my opponent's build is, my build is pretty good against it. It's pretty solid as long as I transition appropriately, because he is not scouted at all. He's going straight into the Stargate, hides it in the main, and he is not he's not planning for anything his opponent's doing until he sees it later, I guess, with his first Phoenixes.
That's the mentality that quite a few players have. If you think about the European scene for a second, Show is one of those players that has stated in the interview several times that one of the reasons why he didn't scout for a long time in the game was because he thought, my build is so good, whatever my opponent does, I will be fine. And if he rushes me, I'll be okay. If he plays a macro game, I'll also be okay. And then in the early mid game, that's when I start scouting, because up to this point, I feel everything that is being thrown against me is being countered by how I open.
Yeah. Well, we have a robotics going down here, and he's hitting both. The Overlord will finally come in to see the Stargate to the top right, but will not see the robotics. And I think that the Overlord will see the first Phoenix. Yeah, so the Phoenix is also shown, and he knows exactly what's going on. He could have also, of course, just looked at the Stargate to see what was coming out. But what comes out of the Robo next is really going to determine a lot. If he just makes an Observer, it'll be very clear he wants to take a third base. If it's an Immortal, though, everything is going to be different, and this is something that Ragnarok wants to scout as soon as possible. He just doesn't even know about the Robo. That's his biggest problem.
Yeah, and talking about knowing information, we still don't see any scouting information for Panic, which is definitely an issue. And Ragnarok knows about the timings that could potentially hit him. He started off with a decent drone count, is now even going up to 60. He's losing a bunch of overlords here, and this is of course a little bit annoying. He was earlier supply blocked a little bit after losing the first one, but immediately completed the additional ones, and also right now we see him with more and more overlords. But he's going to be supply blocked in a few seconds. Starting his upgrades in his tech on the other hand, so it's not going to be too difficult, but he needs to be careful about, as you already mentioned, the second phase of Panic's two-step process that he has here.
Yeah, he's going into Robotics Bay, which can be for multiple things. I mean, he could take a third base with it, but since he's not making any more probes, he's getting an Immortal first. He's at 46 probes. Looks like he's going to be the build I like to call Plan X, where it's just a really very specific timing with Immortals and Colossi. Well, just one Immortal most of the time, but sometimes two. And it can be really tough to defend if you don't see it coming. If you do see it coming, you have to rely on flanks. You can't get Corruptors out in time. It's not going to be the answer that you want.
Yeah, I'm really curious how exactly he's going to deal with this. We have the Phoenix is still trying to cause some trouble and also shutting down the scouting information of the Zerg player, and he's doing a really good job at that. In this game now, the lemons that we talked about earlier before the game started don't really come into play, since we do not have this like massive commitment by the Zerg player to dominate the map at the beginning. He was playing like very economy based, and the same thing we see for Panic. He's very focused on his own build here and doesn't try to establish map dominance with the gateway army. He instead is now getting up the gateways to just push out with the right timing, that as soon as like the range is completed for the Colossi is going to hit. 2 Colossi range, he will have the Immortal there as well. This is a pretty difficult push to stop. We have only Roaches and Hydralisks at the disposal of Ragnarok, so he has to be very careful here. He has no anti-am.
And he has mostly Hydras too. Only a few Roaches out on the map. He's making 12 Hydras now. They will have +1, but so will the Colossi of Panic. He has one forward pile, not very forward.
I like what Panic did here too. He sent a Zealot out just to secure the Xel'Naga Watchtower before he starts his move out, to make sure that nothing can be spotted here. Before that we had Zerglings at those towers, but Ragnarok is now blind and Panic is moving out, so good position, even missed by those Zerglings. Great positional play here by Panic. Pretty sure that was intended, but he sees now the first Colossus, and he should have an inkling of what's going on. That Spire on the other hand,
no, Spire's not the answer.
Gonna help him.
I think he must have started it before he saw. There's no way he would have started that after seeing this. And it's not going to be helpful at all. It's not going to be done in time, first of all, and even if it were, he's not going to be able to get enough Corruptors out. It's all about the Force Fields here.
He's moving in. Look at that worker count as well, 71 to 46. Panic is kind of all in here. He needs to do damage. If he doesn't do damage, if this does not do anything, then he's going to lose that game most likely. The Force Field at the front is good. The Roach is still trying to buffer a little bit. We have 2 Colossi with range and that one Immortal dancing there. But Ragnarok is trying to buy himself a bit of time, trying to get the better position here. Force Fields, on the other hand, could definitely put a stop to that.
Yeah, Force Fields here really good. He's starting to work away at the drones, and basically Ragnarok is doing the dance of death here. He's trying to buy a little bit more time to just get his army beefed up. There's the time warp. A little bit of a flank here is blocked by Force Fields.
And he's buying himself a lot of time here. He's always dancing back and forth, just trying to delay his opponent for as long as possible. Even if he loses a base, he could make up for that, maybe. But right now, the army supply 91 against 72 in favor of Ragnarok. But his army is just not able to contest this. He's sacrificing the third base. He realizes this is something that he cannot hold. Moves back, still waiting for the speed upgrade for the Roaches. We have the +2 attack upgrade also not done.
He's
and
massively
more
supply blocked too, Calor. He's losing a lot of these units in the Larva. Warp Prism at the front going to take some damage here, it looks like. And here come those Phoenix. He's going to lift up a few of the Hydras, and one Colossus is targeted down. No micro here.
The second one is in danger, and he's also going down. At the front, we have the Immortal, and the Immortal is also dead and dying, and the rest of the units are moving in, but reinforcements for Panic just warped in a couple of seconds ago. The Stalkers are doing their best here. They don't have the blink upgrade, so they can't really micro a whole lot. And with all the DPS that we have out of the Hydralisk, he is forced back, taking the third base down, but now pushed back by his Zerg opponent.
Yep. Losing that Warp Prism was kind of a problem for getting reinforcements right up in the front, and this is basically going to be it, because now what can Panic hope to do? Yes, he killed the base. Yes, he did eliminate a lot of the Harvesters, but he has no tech. I mean, all he can do is try to fall back on Immortals and Colossi to take his own third.
Yeah, the third base now coming in for Ragnarok, and they still have the same Harvester count. This is, of course, something that Panic could accomplish here. Just killing a lot of the Harvesters of Ragnarok since the third base was under fire for so long. And he definitely took a bit of the momentum of Ragnarok away here and didn't allow the Zerg player to completely snowball. But Panic is still in a position where he can try to make it work, and it looks currently like he just wants to go for a second attack. He's emphasizing the Immortal composition now quite heavily. Moving out with one probe, not quite sure if he's really going to take that base, but it looks like he wants to try and take one and then just expand again.
Yeah.
No, not really.
Yeah, he's definitely... Well, he could take a hidden base maybe.
Maybe just gets a forward pile because he doesn't probe up. He doesn't build any harvesters.
Just a Warp Prism.
Highlights me to believe that we will maybe just see a second move out. And that's also what the Overseer is just now scouting. Speed upgrade for the Hydralisk, on the other hand, is halfway completed and should be done by the time that Panic arrives at the bottom left of the map.
This army composition is terrible for Panic. He doesn't have a lot of Stalkers. He's mostly Zealots against 17 Roaches. Those Zealots are basically just going to tank a tiny bit of damage and be useless.
4 sentries. There's not a lot of force field potential in that. If he hits the perfect force field, it's going to be a different story. There's a lot of army supply on the other hand, but he is 70 army supply against 92, which kind of indicates already that Ragnarok has quite the lead here. And don't forget that him being on the high ground against the choke point gives him an edge as well.
Yeah, the Zealots are at the back. This is never going to work. He tries to force field here, but he only works against himself. The Zealots just can't accomplish anything here. He even has a little bit of creep on that Overlord. I mean, the Concave here is perfect. Speed is done, as you said.
Oh, and the Warp Prison is nearly going to be sniped, and yep, there it is. He snipes the Warp Prison, no more Warp Ins, and he just goes down the ramp. Ragnarok on his way to victory, pushing the Protoss player back, dropping down to 34 army supply, and this is going to be game. Ragnarok is definitely going to take this victory right here for AZUBU and claiming the 1-0 for his team.
Yep, definitely no question about that. The last of the Stalkers start to fall here. A good idea by Panic, one of the riskier builds. Not a build probably Ragnarok expected on this map, but he scouted it, he was patient, and that's all she wrote. 117 to 55 supply here. What is Panic going to do? I mean, it looks like he's just going to sit at home and warp in more units, but he is going to fall eventually.
Yeah, what we really needed to see for Panic here were better force fields in the first few fights, cutting half of Ragnarok's army off maybe, or just small chunks that he can deal with. But this and that happened. And here we have the GG now as AZUBU takes game number 1.